All right, in this lesson, we've got kind of a two-part where we've got includes and ternary operator, and we want to put them together within the challenge. So includes is a method that determines whether an array includes a certain value amongst its entries, returning true or false as appropriate. And so this is perfect for a ternary operator because we can check to see if this Boolean value is true or false, and then apply a different outcome depending on what that is. So ternary is a short form for conditional operator. It allows you to do it within one statement. It takes in the three different operands, and the first one is going to be the Boolean response, so the condition. And then if it's true, it's going to give you one output, and if it's false, it's going to give you another output. And they've got an example of how the ternary will work over here, and especially within a function, this is really useful because it's going to be returning back if is a member, then it's going to be $2, and if it's not a member, then it's going to be $10. So sending in either true, false, or 1 is going to have different results being returned back. And in this case, this is where we can use the includes because this will return back either true or false within the statement. Let's create a temporary array. And we can just add in some random values in here. We're going to use includes, so we indicate what array, and then use the includes method in order to determine what value we're looking for that we want to include. So we want to see if that array includes 5. Let's refresh, and we see that the outcome is true. Also, let's look for 6. We also have true. What if it's 64? We get a result back of false, so it doesn't include that. So you get a Boolean response, and similar to what we were looking at index of within arrays as well, that we can check to see if it includes it, and if it doesn't, if it's not within the array, then we got a -1 back. Otherwise, we got the index value, and in this case, this is how we can return a Boolean value. Let's create one other quick function. So wrap it within rounded brackets, and we're checking to see if the value is true, and if it is true, then we're going to return back yes, and you separate it with the colon, otherwise we're going to return back no. So we can try that function. So passing in a Boolean value, so yes, another Boolean value of false returns back no. So we can combine these together now. So instead of looking to see that includes, we can check to see if that value that we're passing in is in the array, and if it is, then we're going to get includes, otherwise we're not. So if we pass in 5, we see 5 is there, 66 is no, and so on. So we can pass in any of the values, and if it's in the array, then we get returned back yes, otherwise we get returned back no if it's not within the array. So in this lesson challenge, we're going to use what we just learned and take that and apply that to generate 50 random numbers from 1 to 20, and we're going to exclude these values from that list. So 10, 15, 7, 1, 4, 2, and 5 are not included within the response of that random number. So using a function and output the results into the console. So within their console, you're going to see a listing of all the numbers, but you can't return back the ones that are within the list. And you can use recursion within the function in order to accomplish this as well. I'll give you a quick sneak peek at the code that we're going to be using, and pause the video here, and I'll walk you through how you can set this up coming up. Okay, so I hope you had an opportunity. So first thing that we need to have an array. So this is our exclude numbers array. And these are all the numbers that we're excluding. And they can be any numbers. I'm just picking some at random. We're also going to need a function that's going to generate the random number and passing in a minimum and a maximum. So it's completely flexible and dynamic. First, that random number. So math floor, so using the math object, math random, in order to get a random number, no other way. And then selecting from that random, we're taking the max minus the min plus 1, and we're also going to add in the 1 to that. And for now, let's return back number, and we do need an equal sign in there, so just save that. So now we can try that, or generate random, and then our minimum can be 1 and our maximum is 4. So every time we post that, you see we can get a random number from 1 to 4. We saw that we can generate any one of those numbers at random using the formula. So the next thing that we want it to do is have 20 iterations of that. So setting that up, setting x is equal to 0, And we're going to just do a typical for loop and then increment x so that we have a way out of the loop. And then we can console log whatever number is being returned back from that formula. And we're going to have our minimum value. So setting the minimum at 1 and setting the max is equal to 15. And this is where we're going to use that formula where we've got generating random. So you could also just hard code that in, but this makes it a little bit more flexible, of course. So see, now we're generating all of these random numbers anywhere from 1 to 15. So it could be any of them. Every time we refresh, you see we've got another set of numbers there. So there's 1, there's 15. There's no numbers that are outside of that spectrum. So that part is working great. And the next thing that we need to do is exclude numbers. So instead of just returning the number, we're going to do something a little bit more complex, where we want to get the result using the x numbers and then using includes and checking to see if that number is there. So that means that if that one of these numbers is one of the ones that we potentially might be returning, we don't want to return it quite yet. And what we want to do instead is we want to generate a new number. So we're passing again into that generate random, so creating recursion within the function, where we're going to generate another random number until we are able to return one that isn't within the array. Otherwise, we can just return back the number. We can refresh, and now you can see that we're excluding all of those numbers. So no matter how many times we run it, we're never going to see 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 10, or 15 within the returned numbers. And you can shorten this as well as just doing a simple return here, so you don't have to use the other variable. So it's going to do the same thing. And before we conclude, the challenge was any number from 1 to 20. So that's why it's good that we did set up the variables, because we can update our max really easily. And now you can see that we're getting any number from 1 to 20, but we're excluding the ones that are within the array.